No. Okay, we're up against the same billionaire. Okay, his name is John Fisher. He's the owner of the Oakland A's. Okay, his family also owns the charter schools. Okay, he's connected with Libby Shaft, and there's really no secret as to what's going on here. Okay, so one of the things about gentrification, the first thing that happens is a systematic rundown of the neighborhood or the school or the port. Okay, so there's been years and years of neglect in funding for the schools to run them down to a level to where these I call them oligarchs make their cases to shut schools down. Same thing's happening in the Port of Oakland. There's been years and years of neglect, maintenance, and infrastructure work, which now you hear people saying things like, "Oh well, Howard Terminal is just a parking lot, or it's just a unused land with all of these potholes in it, and nobody needs it." Well, that's not true. Okay, the Howard Terminal is public land. It belongs to us. Okay, and it shouldn't be sold cheaply to John Fisher. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. Same thing with the Oakland schools. The Oakland schools are for the public. Okay, public money should go into public schools to improve public schools so that our children have decent schools to go to, decent equipment to use. It's all intertangled. Okay, so if you haven't noticed, which has been very hard to notice, Oakland has really changed. I've been in the Bay Area my whole life. I'm a resident of Berkeley, which is right next to Oakland. I grew up in Berkeley. But I've seen Oakland change and keep changing and changing, and it's getting to the point where as a black man, I don't feel welcomed in Oakland. Okay, and that's another part of gentrification. So gentrification is not only bad for African Americans, not only bad for teachers, not only bad for Hispanics, okay, but it's bad for all working people and people who are poor. Gentrification is our worst enemy, because we get disproportionately displaced. Okay, so if you can imagine an Oakland without the waterfront and without the ILWU, if you can imagine Oakland without any public schools, all of the schools private, okay, who's going to be advantaged there?
Right.
Okay, where are our children that parents don't have thousands of dollars a month to send them to these private schools? Where are they going to go? They're going to literally have to move out of the area. Okay, same thing with us. We'll literally, without our longshore jobs here, we literally would have to move out of the area to find other work. Poor people have to look for work. It doesn't just fall in our lap. Okay, so the opportunities in Oakland and the Bay Area as a whole are starting to shrink up for poor people. And we're here to make sure that we put a stop to that. Okay, now, in closing, I just wanted to mention that to piggyback off something Craig said, this is not the first time that we've gathered like this, the community gathered together to fight against gentrification, privatizing, and racism. We've been doing it for years, but I just wanted to point out, because there's a lot of people here in the room that were a part of the Million Worker March campaign. Okay, where we started off with a group like this, and we ended up in Washington, D.C. At the Lincoln Memorial with over 80,000 working people there to support the cause. Okay, one of the main demands that we had for the government then was an end to privatization, especially in the public school system. This is not just happening in Oakland. It's happening all across the country. Okay, it's even buying houses, because our sisters here representing housing. You can't even afford to buy a house in the Bay Area anymore. Okay, where are the people who can't afford to buy a house gonna go? Where are the people gonna go that can't afford $4,000 a month in rent? This is for one bedroom. So this fight is much bigger than the fight we're taking on. However, this is a start. And where I envision this organization going, that we're going to start tonight, I envision it going way past this fight and on to bigger fights. Okay. One thing we all have in common is that we're all working people here. Okay, whether you're a longshoreman, whether you're a teacher, okay, whether you're a mail carrier, whether you're a radio host, we are all workers. Workers are not represented very well in the United States of America, okay? Because we don't have a labor party. We have no vote. We have the Republicans and we have the Democrats. How far has that gotten us? You know, so we need to fight for stronger representation. We need to be organized so that our votes count. And even my sister who talked about the Labor Council, the people who we are allowing to be a part of the Labor Council. I mean, they're there because we're not organized. Okay? And we have to get organized. We got to start by getting these riffraffs out of office, getting them off of our councils, getting them off of our boards, school board. We got to get them out of here because they are minions.
City council reps.
They're minions for the billionaires.
Mayors.
That's right.
They're getting paid off. A lot of them are getting paid off through nonprofits.
That's right.
Okay?
Donors.
We need to recognize what's happening. When we're all together, this rainbow coalition is what I call it. Okay?
That's
We
right.
stand our ground, red, yellow, black, white, and brown. If you put that combination together, we cannot be stopped.
That's right.
Okay, so the reflection in this room right now, I couldn't be prouder looking at all of you, and I want to welcome all of the brothers and sisters who helped us organize the Million Worker March. I see you out there. Welcome back. The struggle continues. And with that said, welcome to the ILWU, and I look forward to a long, prosperous organizing campaign.
This is like our agenda, just so people know. So this was Trent, myself, Misty, and Tim. If you guys want to say hello, and Gennaro and Craig tried to, come up with something to organize this. We didn't know if it was going to be 10 people. It's a lot more than 10 people. So we're going to try to do our best, but this is what we thought about as an agenda, which is up here, or probably on the paper that you found. We did the introduction. Very nice. We're going to have a little time for people to talk and meet each other to talk about what our shared goals are, and then come back as a group to see if we can move forward some ideas and then do some next steps. So I did want to say, I feel like I'm feeling compelled to say a little, like 2 minutes, I'm going to time myself, to say a 2-minute overview of what's happening with the schools in case people don't know. Does that sound like it's worth it?
Yeah.
Okay, so, ready?
Such a teacher.
2 minutes, I know, right? Good morning, this is the do now. So at the end of January, the Oakland School Board announced that they wanted to close, at that time it was 16 schools. There was an immediate community uprising, and there were strikes, there were walkouts, parents were taking action, a hunger strike began, there was all kinds of activity. They announced that they made this announcement, and then the vote was going to be, I think it was 8 days later. The activity that happened over the course of those 8 days did reduce the list down to 10 schools. They're trying to close 3 schools at the end of this year. That's Parker, Community Day, we have those represented here, and La Escuelita, which we also have represented. And then as well as merging Rise and New Highland, which is essentially a closure as well. They're also trying to close 6 elementary schools at the end of next year. All of those schools are located in the flats. So we're talking about East Oakland schools, we're talking about working class Black and Brown students, Black, Brown, Indigenous students. What are they gonna do? Why do they wanna close the schools? They say it's because the schools are under-enrolled. Well, really what they wanna do is create surplus property. So when those buildings are closed, they send those children to whatever neighboring schools, I guess. They send those teachers, whichever ones still wanna stay to the neighboring schools, quote unquote. Maybe they're going across town, some are having to go more than a mile, some 2.5 to 3 miles are being displaced. Maybe they'll go to the charter school that's right next to the school that they used to go to that was closed. And then those schools will immediately be either leased to a charter school which uses public funds but is not accountable to the public, or those properties could be sold to developers. And we already know of at least one property where the school board president, Gary Yee, was there with a developer, and that's Community Day, which Sister Elizabeth is here from. So that's just an overview of what's happening with the school closures. We are struggling to do our best to get those roads reversed, right? So many of us are here from the OEA and other unions. Did I do it?
Yes.
Okay, so, we're here because that's why the 6 of us came together to try to pull a meeting together, because we have some of the same goals, right? And it's all about the grab of our land, the displacement of our people, the disenfranchisement of union jobs, and really, breaking up our families and breaking up what we need, for a rise for the working class. So what we thought was we would give people a little bit of time to get into groups. Let's say maybe like 6, so that it's enough that you can meet people, but don't get with people you know. A lot of you know each other. Good. Do you want to say something?
How you gonna do
1, 2,
that?
3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, we could
like
do
that.
that. See,
That's a teacher strategy.
I'll do it. Yeah.
this is the MC. This is the thing.
Why am I in this meeting with these?
And thank you to those that were there today. We all spoke against having Howard Terminal become non-port property, and the SPAC Seaport Advisory Committee voted 5-4 against taking Howard Terminal away from the port. We've been fighting since 2019. We've been lobbying against these corrupt politicians, Nancy Skinner, Bontas, all of them. The Shaft, these corrupt city councilmen, they are hook, line, and sinker in bed with John Fisher. And we know that John Fisher is the reason why you guys are here tonight.
Yeah.
We know that we have a common enemy. And please, stand with us for this fight with Howard Terminal, and we will stand with you for this fight to keep the schools in Oakland. I was born and raised in Oakland. And in one of these hearings, the city council had the gall to say that they were going to do a disparity study. I was like, you want to spend $1,355,000,000 of taxpayer dollars on this project, and you want to close 20 schools? It's unbelievable. How could you even talk about disparity? It's like it just blows your mind. Words, I don't have the words for it. So thank you all. Nice to meet you.
And I was just sitting here thinking, and I passed the note over to the young lady to the side of me, and I had asked how many schools in these areas were due for closure. And then when she brought them back to me, I looked at Parker, Grass Valley, Brookfield, and Horace Mann. I'm a person that went to public schools back in Los Angeles. I moved up here in the Bay Area back in 1990. I used to manage Domino's Pizza, and one of the things I used to do, I used to go to the schools, the high schools, junior high schools, and the elementaries, and try to set up a lunch program or fundraising. These are some of the schools that I went to. Now, what's funny here is that we saying that the schools are closing. Once we have parents, some parents are, my kid's it's too good to go to public school. They want to send them out to other areas. Now, at the same time, it's like, now the community has become a victim of it. Because you get the crooked politicians, you get the crooked mayors, you get these corporate greeds that comes in, the one percenters, I should say. They come in, and now when you put when you put corporate greed in front of education, now it's a slap to not only the community, but as well as the teachers. Now, you look at teachers losing jobs. Our unemployment rate is already ridiculous coming off a pandemic. So I'm just gonna share one other thing real quick, and it was when gentrification first started. I remember getting off work one night, and it was probably about 2:30 in the morning. And I was driving down, what is that right there when we come by the BART? Mandela. And I made a left turn, and because the freeway was shut down, I'm taking the back way, and I see a middle-aged white lady walking down Mandela Parkway with a dog. And I'm like, so I'll make a U-turn and come back around, and I'm like, ma'am, I'm no pervert or anything like that, but do you know where you at? She's like, yes. I said, this is West Oakland. And she was like, yes, I've been living here 2 years. I said, huh? I'm like, are you aware that 10 years ago that you couldn't walk a dog in this neighborhood? And it blew my mind. So after that, I started seeing the area just populate more and more. And the way it did, you had kids that were coming from like Fremont, Union City, coming over to the public high schools to play football over at McClymonds High School. But that didn't go through. So here was a parent that wanted his son to do better in one of the Oakland public school districts, but it took someone over in the school district supposed to play that and got this kid ineligible. So it's kind of crazy how this works, but when you got a mayor like Libby Scabb, that came here to this union, asked us to endorse her, in which we stood behind her when she ran for Oakland, and it came here to our Bloody Thursday and said that she was an Oakland native, she went to Oakland school, her parents was this, and that she was gonna stand behind the ILWU no matter what. At our Bloody Thursday, our sacred festival, and then come here when we come to this Oakland A's and turn her back on the community that she's supposed to represent. She's a scam. And you guys gotta get her out. So, other than that, thank you. That's all I have to say about that.
I just want to assure the teachers in the room that the longshoremen are dedicated to this fight to the end. I'm not a man of many words, but I am a man of action. And when I tell you we're going to be with this to the end, we're going to finish the job.
All right, so before we break off into our groups.
Education and Power at the San Francisco Labor Council. State slate to defend working people in San Francisco. We will fight for the union democracy and transparency at all levels. Without workers' power, we will achieve nothing. Power comes only from organizing workers and uniting from the same goal. Like what I heard in this room, this is really the power right here. The San Francisco Labor Council should play a more prominent role in organizing its affiliate members to provide more support to each other during labor action and creating labor community alliances and standing together on the side of the workers when faced with privatization forces trying to divide us. So that's part of my platform that I'm running on, but I'm really strong about privatization because I've seen what it's doing to all public services and we have to stop it. So thank you.
Right, we know that like right now we're on Tish, Coastal Miwok, Ohlone land where we come from, right? So honor indigenous land through the protection and reclamation of public land and resources, right? A big goal is just around awareness, sensitizing the folks that are not in this room to what is happening, helping them understand our narrative. That is a very significant goal, a shared goal between us. Keeping communities together for the long term. We are not trying to see families continuing to be disrupted, going out to Stockton, beyond to other states. Organizing unions to act collectively against privatization. This, I think, particularly could be strong in, the medical world, right? Everyone complains about, like, there's not enough nurses. Imagine if we were just like, sorry, y'all, no one's going to work today. I really want you to feel that. But again, like, who are our targets, right? Get people elected to local posts that represent us, that are actually loyal to us. Exposing these fraudulent nonprofits that are collecting money, funneling it out, and oh, this is what we do in the community, and they're not doing shit. Our targets, not only the Fisher family, right? Because Doris and Don Fisher, John Fisher's parents own Gap. Think about how many things Gap owns. Think about, I drive all the time between Oakland and San Francisco, and I see these 3 beautiful melanated people on this Gap ad, and it makes me sick every single time. Okay, so boycotting is a significant thing. Obviously, all of our WAC board members are targets. We really want to think about how we can further unify students and workers, particularly since we're not necessarily satisfied with the education that every single one of our students is getting. We know that we have some of the lowest literacy rates in the world in this country. Like 47, maybe 47% of our kids are able to read when they graduate nationally, but in Oakland it's atrocious, and particularly for children that look like me, right? So it's really about how can we draw the connections, empathize, learning from our elder wisdom and historical lessons. A lot of folks don't know about, things that have happened in South America, particularly Chile, Paraguay, for example, where, monocrops, privatization, Monsanto is king. And they're literally water is not even free. Water is not a resource that folks have access to anymore. So being able to learn from that. As far as goals, ways to build solidarity. We want to develop media strategies, again, to sensitize people to what is happening, to stop continuing to listen to local or national news that's just painting the picture of underfunding, under-enrollment. We want to get classified staff involved and ultimately disrupt privileged space. So I want to know how it feels when your streets are not clean anymore. No one is coming to wash shit off your streets, right? How is it going to feel when your orderlies aren't coming, your CNAs are not showing up to do the jobs that you don't want to do?
Right.
That's a really significant thing. And then absolutely our student engagement and empowerment in that same vein of civic engagement.
Payment. I just wanted to say this room, most of you, this is probably the first time you've been up here. This is what we call the Henry Schmidt room. That's Henry Schmidt in that photograph up there. He was the first president of Local 10, and that was in the 34th strike. He's one of the leaders and organizers of that strike. And this is the very room where almost 40 years ago we organized a protest against the ship that came in from South Africa to protest apartheid. Leo Robinson was the chair of the meeting. Howard Kaler, who made the resolution to hit the next ship that came in from South Africa, was here. So this room has a lot of history, and we're proud of that history. I'm not going to go through all of it because we'd be here all night, but we're proud of the actions that we've taken. We stand by our slogan, an injury to one is an injury to all. And we want to make that come to fruition around this struggle against privatization.
Yes, yes.
I don't know what action we're going to come up with here, but I know it's going to be something that's powerful that the people in the Bay Area have not seen for a long time. I just sent an email out this morning to Angela Davis, letting her know that we're probably going to have an action on May Day, and asking her to participate. We are. We are going to have. Well, we're going to continue to make history here, so let's stick together. Let's get other unions and other non-union